choice of a business model and your value proposition will have for sure financial implications. That's the reason why a financial plan is one of the most important parts of any business plan. However, there is a false perception about financial planning. We think that when we have to prepare a financial plan, we have to predict results. But actually, prediction is possible only in a world in which events are given and our actions in the present don't have any impact on our future results. But this is the opposite of a business plan, in which we are preparing our action plan to determine our future results. So the real objective of a financial plan is not to predict, but to understand the financial performance of your company, to understand the drivers and the risk factors that could potentially have an impact on your financial performance. For sure, one of the most important operating risks that you have to take into consideration is the cost structure of your company. When we talk about cost structure, we are talking about the mix between variable and fixed cost. More specifically, variable costs are those costs that will vary in direct proportion to the level of activity, while fixed costs will remain constant over wide ranges of activities. Obviously, the level of activity can be measured in a different way. So you can measure level of activity in terms of units, in terms of number of patients, in terms of number of enrollments, any indicator that is useful to identify your level of activity. Now, why is this distinction between variable and fixed cost relevant also for business planning? It is relevant for two reasons. The first reason is that while you are preparing your business plan, you have the opportunity to have an impact on your cost structure. For example, by deciding whether to manage internally or to outsource an activity. Second reason, remember that the objective of a financial plan is to make simulation, to understand the impact of different scenarios on your results. And your cost structure is one of the most important items that will have an impact on your profit and more specifically on the riskiness of your company. In particular, we observe that if you have a rigid cost structure, that is to say a high incidence of fixed cost, an increase in sales or a decrease in sales will have a huge impact, all the other things being equal, on your profit. So a high increase in sales will generate a high increase in profit, but unfortunately also the opposite is true. A high decrease in sales will have a huge impact a negative effect on your profit. So are we saying that it's better to have a flexible cost structure? Absolutely not. What we are saying is that it is important to understand your cost structure to simulate the impact of changes in different scenarios. The term operating leverage is used to describe the sensitivity of our profits to change in sales. The higher the degree of operating leverage of a company, the higher the impact of changing sales on our profits. The degree of operating leverage can be measured as the relationship between the contribution margin of your company and the operating profit. But knowing the cost structure of your company is important not only because this is an important risk indicator, but also because a cost reduction could have an impact on your profit that is as relevant as a substantial increase in your sales. Of course, the cost structure is not the only driver of your financial performance. Prices, volume, the mix in sales are important drivers of your financial performance. All these drivers, together with the distinction between variable and fixed cost, are variables included in a simple but very effective simulation tool, cost volume and profit analysis. The most famous application of cost volume and profit analysis is the computation of the break-even point. That is to say, how many units do I have to sell or how many sales do I have to generate in order to break even, in order to have a profit that is equal to zero. Also, this indicator is an important risk indicator because the distance between the sales that are expected in your plan and the sales to break even gives you an idea about the quality and the riskiness of your assumptions. But the computation of the break-even point is not the only question answered by cost, volume, and profit analysis. Many other questions that we can answer are: how many units do I have to sell in order to reach a target profit? What's the minimum price that I have to charge to my customer in order to reach a profit? How do I have to pay my salesman, with a variable compensation, a fixed compensation, or what's the optimum combination of the two? So as you can see, cost, volume, and profit analysis is useful to simulate the impact of different scenarios. And we have said since the very beginning of this session that the objective of a financial plan is not to predict your result, but to understand how your results are affected by cost and revenue drivers. So in a business plan, these tools are very important because in a business plan, figures and numbers are less important than assumptions. And what investor will evaluate are not only numbers, but also, and more important, the quality of the assumptions that you have included in your business plan.